Welcome. Welcome to Epic Lunch and Learn, the show where real estate meets real talk. And your lunch break turns into a master's class. I'm Dante Royster, mortgage broker, author, and your guide through the mortgage mystery, the mortgage maze. And I'm here with attorney April Preyar. But before we dive in, I wanted to make sure we do a couple things. This episode is being streamed right now on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So if you're liking the information, you're liking the content, make sure you give it a like. That helps us know that we're actually moving in the right direction, giving you the knowledge and the education that you were looking for and yearning for. So, definitely give us a like, share it with friends and family. Let them know we're here Monday through Thursday from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I do know we have some West Coast folks that join us. So welcome. It's brunch for you, but for it's lunch here. But I want you, to, as we start today off, I want you to picture this. You're standing in front of a home you've always dreamed of. The sun is setting, casting that golden glow across the neighborhood. You're not just looking at walls and windows, you're imagining your family's laughter echoing through the hallways. The cookouts in the backyard, the holidays by the fireplace. It's just not a property, it's the stage for your future. But here's the truth. In 2024, 32% of homes were bought in cash, which means nearly 70% of buyers needed financing to make that dream reality. Mortgages aren't just numbers on paper, they're the bridge between hope and home. And that bridge can feel like a mountain to climb. Lenders look at the four C's: capacity, capital, collateral, and credit. Each one is a checkpoint. And if you don't know the path, it can feel overwhelming. But the mountains aren't climbed alone. You need guides, people who know the terrain, who can shine a light on the path forward, and most importantly, who can empower you to take the next step. And that brings me to today's guest. She's not only a fierce advocate, but an educator who's built her career on simplifying complicated systems and helping people see their own power. Just like real estate finance, the legal world can feel like a maze. But April Pryor has made it her mission to demystify it and guide others through the clarity and courage. So I welcome Attorney April.
Thank you. It's prayer though, but thank you very much.
Prayer.
I'm happy to be prayer. So I'm happy to be on the show.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that you're here with us. So why don't you just introduce yourself to the Epic community?
Sure. So my name is April Preyar. I am a Chicago native. I have been practicing law for November will make 26 years. And my passion the entire time has been criminal defense. I started off as a public defender, did that for 6 years, and then I've been in private practice ever since. And then about halfway along the way, I started suing dirty cops for beating up my clients. And so one went hand in hand. And then somehow I turned to educating youth about police encounters. I created my own Monopoly style board game where kids can learn in 25 minutes how to make it home, how not to be the next Laquan McDonald or Tamir Rice. And then I built that out into an education. I have digital courses. I go into schools, I go into nonprofits, and I bring my team of attorneys along with me. And as far as real estate goes, I have always done that very, 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 very part-time. It was just kind of a side hustle. I've done closings even before I did criminal defense, but it was something I just really never thought much about. But now I'm diving back into real estate as well.
Got it. Now, is that LLC the JustUs Junkie LLC? What
Yes.
does that correlate with the game?
So JustUs Junkie is my legal education company, and that is the umbrella that houses everything from the game to the in-person workshops to the digital courses that I mentioned.
Awesome. And then where is that available if someone wanted to purchase that game?
So if you want to get the game, you can go to theonlygameyouneed.com, theonlygameyouneed.com, because it is in fact that. You don't need Monopoly, you don't need Uno, but this game can save your life. So theonlygameyouneed.com, you can go and grab a copy of Trials and Triumph board game. And like I said, in 25 minutes, it'll change your life and your kids' lives. I've never had kids play in the room where adults didn't pull me to the side and say, "Oh my God, I didn't know that. And I didn't know that. And I didn't know that." Because, adults, we think we're know-it-alls, but they pull me to the side and say, "I didn't know that. And I thought this was wrong. And, I wish I had met you 20 years ago when they caught a case." So definitely play it with those you love to keep everybody in your household safe.
What now? Give me a trade secret. Like, what's something that you that I think I know, but I don't know?
Most people don't know that they don't have to take DUI tests. And the funny thing is, so I have a very active Facebook profile. I was an influencer before they were influencers, and I do informational videos. And I always get attacked by the trolls saying I don't know what I'm talking about when I say you do not have to take the DUI test. So whether it's standing on one leg, walking the straight line, blowing into the breathalyzer, taking the blood test, like taking the urine test, you should always say, no, I refuse, because it gives your attorney a better opportunity to fight your case. I don't care where you live in the United States, you should never take those tests. Here in Illinois, if you don't take the test, we can actually challenge the suspension that the state is going to issue. Whether you take the test or not, your license is going to be suspended. But we can challenge the suspension and never have it go into effect if you help us out on the front end and don't take the test. If you take the test, you're going to fail. The physical test, the cop is always going to say you stumbled, you staggered, you counted the wrong number of steps, because they're subjective. You've never taken the steps, you've never taken the test before, but you want to be out there on the street like a pro athlete, acting like you've been practicing forever. You're going to lose. In terms of the breathalyzer, the blood, and the urine, those are scientific tests. So now you want to have the prosecutor actually have scientific proof that you were drunk or high. It doesn't make any sense. Say no to all the tests. Say, I refuse, I do not consent, and give your attorney something to work with. But adults always think, well, the cop didn't tell me I had the option of not taking the test. Well, they're never going to tell you. They're going to play a game of Simon Says and say, follow me, touch your nose, follow my pen with your eyes. They're never going to ask you. They expect that you don't know and that you're going to fall on the sword and mess up your life. So I'm giving you a little bit of free advice and telling you, do not take any DUI tests. You will fare better. I don't care where you live in the United States.
That's awesome. I mean, obviously, the fear would be if I don't take the test, I'm already further incriminating myself, or at least that's the thought pattern that I would have, that I'm being challenged. And if I don't do it, then I'm saying that, yeah, I can't do it. But you're saying, hey, I'm giving my lawyer more more help, obviously, in their whole defense.
Yeah, because the more you do, the more observations the cop can make and the more he can testify against you. He can say, oh, I saw her walk this straight line and she stumbled and she staggered and she was supposed to take 9 steps and she took 10 steps and she counted wrong and she didn't step heel to toe, and in your mind, you aced it. But now you've given him more to talk about. Whereas if all he did was put you in handcuffs and assist you to the back of his car, that's all he can say. Well, she walked 3 feet. I had her elbow the entire time. She was in handcuffs. I didn't see her do any gymnastics. She didn't say anything because she knows to shut up and lawyer up. And I didn't get to smell her breath. I didn't hear whether her speech was slurred or stuttered because she didn't talk. So then you end up winning your case. When I was in the public defender's office, my second assignment, 6 months in, was in traffic court. I did DUIs all day and all night. In the first 3 years, I had done 150 DUI trials. So I know DUIs like the back of my hand, but people always think they know better because, their cousin's friend who went to jail told them something different. I'm telling you how to protect your license, how to protect your job, how to protect your housing. Do not take any of these DUI tests.
Wow. Now, was that the moment when, or let me back up. Is that one of the moments that you've experienced that really kind of changed your whole viewpoint when it comes to justice and just what is justice?
What moment?
Just being in the DUI, in the courtroom, dealing with all these situations, like figuring out like how to, make your client be successful and being in court, like, saving his license.
Yeah, I learned a lot. And I went into criminal law really not knowing much about the criminal justice system. So the whole thing was an eye opener for me. I was immediately stunned how all my clients were Black and brown, and no white people in the city of Chicago ever seemed to get drunk and get behind the wheel and get caught. And I realized that rather they got warnings, or they got a slap on the wrist, or the cop allowed them to park their car and walk it off instead of arresting them. So that was the first shocking thing for me. And then just learning that with DUI cases, I won almost all the time if the person did not take any chemical tests. There was almost always a way to beat it. So yeah, I learned a lot about how subjective the system is, how unfair it is, how certain communities are targeted. So that was an eye opener for me. And then because I won so often, it made me very confident and cocky when I started doing more complicated felony cases and drug cases and gun cases. I just expected to win all the time.
Sure. I mean, legal literacy and financial literacy are two main things that we both need to know, or just, people in general need to know in general, because we lack knowledge. And so when people come at us like a police officer, we don't know how to handle those situations. Besides, doing your game and, coming to you directly, I mean, are there other, platforms or technology or websites that we should be going to learn what the rules are?
In terms of criminal law, no. I think that I'm a maverick and I really don't have any place else to recommend you go. I have about 1,000 videos on Facebook that people can check out for free. I am not as robust on my YouTube channel like you, but they can definitely go to Facebook. Facebook's my primary platform. But no, I think there's a lot of misinformation out there, even things I see on TikTok and Instagram, because everybody sends me everything in my inbox that is law related. Oftentimes I see people who are giving out bad information. Either they are lawyers who don't practice criminal law and it was trendy for them to say something about a hot topic in the media. But oftentimes I find that the advice out there is not trustworthy. And I really would just tell people to come to my channel. I would tell them to come get digital courses if they're a parent or a grandparent, that they would get a digital course for their kid, that they would buy the game to supplement it, or that they would come to an in-person workshop when I'm doing one sometime in Chicago. So other than that, no, I don't think they're trustworthy sources. This isn't even stuff I learned in law school. I mean, I learned the basics of the Fourth Amendment, but I didn't learn practical application until I was standing in a courtroom doing countless hearings every day.
Wow. What's the biggest misconception that people, that are novice like myself, would be curious to know?
That they can talk themselves out of bad situations. In general, I find that the more educated my clients are, the more they think that they can talk themselves out of a bad situation. They can tell you that their daddy is a doctor or that their grandmama is a Chicago police officer. They think if they smile and tell you that they're in college or that they just left the military, that they can get a favor from the cop. But the cop has a handy dandy body camera on. And so if he catches you doing something illegal, what's he supposed to do? Flush the drugs, hide the gun? I mean, there's not a whole lot a cop can do to help you at this point, even if they wanted to do you a solid. So people think that talking themselves out of situations, even if that includes lying, is a better option than simply shutting up and lawyering up. People don't ever think to request a lawyer until they are scheduled to be in court. Only 1% of people ask for a lawyer at the police station. And honestly, those first 2 hours at the police station is where 100% of the damage in your case gets done. Not when the crime happened. It's those 2 hours, those first 2 hours that you're in custody. That's when people completely screw their lives up because they think they're so smart and they think they're smarter than the dumb cop in front of them. And they are just going to talk their way out of it. And that's when all of the damage is done.
Mm. So don't outsmart yourself. Just stay quiet. Wait for your attorney to be there.
Shut up, lawyer up. That's my theme. That's trademarks. I normally wear it on t-shirts every time I speak anywhere. Shut up, lawyer up. Because I figure if people don't remember another word I say, they will remember that phrase. It will give them pause. And hopefully they won't talk so much when stopped by a police officer. Nothing you say to a cop can help you. Not good morning, not how are you, not I didn't do it, not let me call my mama. And I have 45-year-olds and 50-year-olds asking for their mama. They never think to ask for a lawyer, but they will ask for mom, grandma, nana. None of that is ever going to help you. Shut up and ask for a lawyer. And in Cook County, lawyers are free at the police station. They do not advertise this. The public defender's office will send a lawyer anywhere in Cook County, whether you're in a hospital, a school, or a police station, and you are in police custody. They will send a lawyer to you for free, but you have to know to ask for it. And I can give you the number for that. I don't remember it off the top of my head.
Understood. Now, is there a difference in obviously, you're based in Illinois, so are you doing practice anywhere else?
No, I only practice in Illinois, but I
Okay.
do, like I said, give advice on social media. And the advice I give is based on the Fourth and Fifth Amendment. So if there's a specific case in a specific place, like I've been on TV 80 times since 2021. Much of that was national TV. News Nation and Court TV were my primary channels that I spoke on. So
Sure.
I would talk about the Rittenhouse, the Amir Arbery case, any high profile police shooting and or criminal case. And so sometimes I would have to look up the specific statute in that state. But the broad strokes, the Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment is the same across the United States. The crime in your state might be called something different than what is called in Illinois. The elements might be slightly different, but the principles are the same and the protections are the same. So it doesn't matter what the nuances are. If you shut up and lawyer up, if you say, I do not consent, I don't care where you live in the United States, you're going to be better off than if you don't do those things.
Wow. That's something else. So, obviously we have a brunch coming up, September 14th. Let me bring that onto the stage here. We got a brunch, and I was curious to have this conversation. Want to buy a house? Ask the experts. Home buyers brunch. So, let's start off with just the concept. Why did you want to do something like this?
It was a bridge from what I was just talking about. I really enjoy breaking down very complicated legal jargon and making it simple so that anybody can understand it. And I think that the home buying process, just like you said, the mortgage process is a maze. It's a matrix. People don't understand it. And so every time I have a new client who has never purchased a home before, I am transported back to when I was 26. I was straight out of law school. I wanted to buy not a house, but a building. I bought a 3-flat, and I had never signed that many papers in my life. I didn't know what I was signing. I didn't know what I was agreeing to. I didn't know what points were. I didn't know what the interest rate should be. I ended up signing. I this is embarrassing. My interest rate was 14%. That's unheard of, but people don't know better. And so I figured, since I'm getting back into real estate and I started talking to different realtors, that I was still running into the same problems with home buyers. They simply don't know. They don't know the terminology. And it's a situation where you don't know what you don't know. So you don't even know what to ask. You kind of don't know what's happening until disaster strikes. And I was also talking to a title agent who was saying that fraud is on the rise when it comes to the home buying process, almost as bad as it was in 2008 when the market first crashed. And that was very shocking to me. So I said, well, why don't we do something to get ahead of it? Why don't we start educating people who are just toying with the idea? Maybe they don't want to buy a house today, but they want to start saving up or getting their credit right over the next year. So let's put something in place. And on the flip side, it's also a fundraiser for my church. My church desperately needs a new boiler. And so I said, instead of trying to lure people into a church with the Bible, beating them over the head with Jesus, why not give them something that the everyday person needs right now? Financial literacy. So we're doing 3 brunches: the home buyers brunch, the next one is the personal finance, which everybody in America needs, and then the last one is the small business owners brunch, which I'm very passionate about because I just believe in small business owner education. So we're tying those 3 together, trying to attract different people in so that they won't be in a position where they don't know what they signed, don't know what they agreed to, don't know what the terms are, where they are having their realtor drive them around to see 50 different properties they can't afford. And we're getting ahead of it by giving them good information in simple terms. And once I came to your Zoom a couple of months ago, I saw that you were one of those educators who could also break down very complicated concepts so that people could understand. And that's why I recruited you to be a part of this event.
No, I appreciate the opportunity and thank you for that. Yeah, we did an epic mastermind for about a year, and the whole premise was to just introduce these concepts and products that are available to the consumer and let them know that they're here. A lot of times in my space, I've always been kind of I've always been in the big fish in a small pond. Right, I'm in a broker channel, which is not always relatively known. Most times, especially if you're going back to maybe your parents, if they bought a home, they went to the bank. You went to the loan officer that sat at the bank. And so you see so many people in droves go to Chase and Bank of America and PNC and, all these big banks and stuff like that. And they don't offer all the products. They're very selective in choosing who they want to work with. And so, a lot of people go there and they get turned down. And when they get turned down, they just assume, well, I don't qualify. And that's not the case. They actually do qualify. Just this summer, I've had so many people come to me that were turned down from Chase and from Bank of America and all these people that told them no. And it's like, I found a way to say yes because I have every product under the sun to get a deal done. And, just really being a Swiss Army knife and just educating them on just things that are available to them. Because, if you went to, let's just use Chase, for example, they don't have a renovation loan product. So, if a house is dilapidated and needs some work, we can do those repairs. We can do those renovations. You don't have to buy something as is, as that's the common term. That means nothing when it talks about getting a loan. I did get some stats. I looked up some stats for today. It said that only 1 in 3 Americans understand basic financial concepts like interest and mortgage rates. Financial ignorance costs Americans a staggering $415 billion in 2020. That's based on Time magazine. And I think about that because, everyone talks about the federal funds rate, right? And the Fed are going to meet, September 17th. And they're going to more than likely, is about an 80% chance, they're going to reduce the Fed funds rate by 0.25%. And everyone is going to call me on the 17th. Hey, I heard the rates went down. The federal funds rate is for student loans, credit cards, car loans, home equity loans. It has nothing to do with a mortgage interest rate. Nothing. But that's all they're going to hear. And that's just a lack of education. If people really want to take advantage of the market, they'd be calling me now, today, and saying, hey, I see that the Fed are going to meet in about 2 weeks, and I want to take advantage because I'm sure the market has already moved. I know about the 10-year treasury. So those are the things that we try to bring as far as education goes. Another stat I thought was fascinating was 56% of Americans flunked a home buying quiz. The younger generation, especially Gen Z, struggled the most. Only about 6% of Gen Z got an A, and that was based on MoneyWise. And it's just, this is not taught in schools. And to your point about just the legal literacy mixing in with the financial literacy, this is not really taught in the school system. I don't know what to do when, the police officer, pulls me over. I get scared. I tense up. I go 9 to 5 in a hurry, and I just try to look straight. And then the only thing that dawns my mind is like, maybe I should get my phone out to just record because I want to make sure I got proof too. But I don't know what to do, and sometimes, those situations, can go a different way. I got a story for you that you might appreciate. And this is a true story. I was meeting a client, and so we decided to meet in Des Plaines, Illinois. Okay. And he was Hispanic and I was Black. And he was going to go to his home inspection. But we had to sign the paperwork. So he decided to, hey, why don't we meet about an hour, half an hour before my home inspection? I'll get there early, and then I can sign your paperwork. That way I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And this was back in the day before, all the DocuSigns and stuff. So I said, okay, cool. So I drove up to Des Plaines, and it was raining. So I was in my car, and then he finally got there. And then we were both sitting in our car, and he's like, man, is that you? And I said, yeah, that's me. He's like, why don't you jump in my van, and I'll sign the papers in my van. And I was like, okay, cool. Because we didn't
sound like a drug deal to me.
Man, we didn't have any keys. We had no keys to the house. The realtor hadn't made it there yet. The home inspector wasn't there yet. And here we are in Des Plaines on just a normal neighborhood road. And so I'm like, all right, well, let me run in. So we're in the van, Black guy, Hispanic guy. And within 5 minutes, a cop comes. Some neighbor had called the cops because they saw 2 men that strange men in the neighborhood parked in a van. And so the cop comes up, and my client, he wanted to play tough guy. He wanted to be like, hey, yo, why are you bothering us? We minding our own business. And I'm like, dude, this guy's got a gun. What are you talking about, man? Just tell him we just do it. He didn't want, no, we chilling. And I was like, are you crazy? ain't chilling. Sign these documents so I can go. I was like, my gosh. But, and, the cops credit, he's trying to figure out what's going on. He was called. I'm not a resident of Des Plaines. He wasn't a resident yet. And situation does happen. So these are situations I was just, sir, can I touch my pocket? I'm trying to give you my business card, man. I am a loan officer. I'm just trying to get this guy to sign his initial application so I can move forward. I am not here for anything other. I don't know what's in this van. I don't know. My car is right over there. So the lack of literacy is something that we definitely need more help in. And did you write any books or anything else that, other than watching your videos?
I'm an author of 6 books, but none of them, I'll say one of them is on topic. So there's a game guide that people can get to explain the concepts and the legal jargon found in the game. But other than that, all the books are unrelated. I was a performance poet for about 10 years. So I got 2 poetry books. I got a memoir, which is a dating disaster memoir. So I have other books that are unrelated to this.
No doubt. I have another stat, and then it looks like we got some questions, so I appreciate that. Make sure if you have questions, comments, just put them in. If you're on YouTube, just put it in the comment section. If you're on LinkedIn or Facebook, put it in the comment section. We'll get to them, I promise, in just a bit. A couple more stats I just wanted to make people aware of. Just 14% of Americans know that the median home price sits between $400,000 to $500,000. A mere 12% are aware that the 30-year mortgage rate is around 7%, and that was per Newswire. It's just we get there's so many distractions. I mean, I think that's the key. There's so many distractions of things that don't necessarily matter. And what's important, we seem to push that to the only when it's like absolute, like, oh man, I got to do it. And then we try to do this crash course of trying to understand these things and figure these things out when this should be the main thing on our plate. And so, I think about that.
Yeah, well, what I say is that Americans in general prefer to put out 5-alarm fires than try to prevent the spark from happening in the first place. So just like you said, we're not going to think about it until it's the night before the closing. We don't know what we're about to sign. We haven't asked the significant the pertinent questions to our realtor and or lawyer. And we're going to do a crash course on Google. We're going to Google all night long, stress ourselves out. Like, that's not first of all, Google is not real research. I got to tell people that all the time. Google is not real research. Secondly, you just reminded me that I'm seeing a trend of people abandoning realtors. I had 2 deals back to back where nobody involved, the seller or the buyer, had realtors. And I was like, God help us all. Because 1, you're increasing my workload, which I'm never gonna sign up for. But number 2, it was just like the people hadn't discussed the different terms other than the price. That's all that they had agreed on. They felt like they didn't need a realtor to show the property, so therefore they didn't need a realtor. They thought they were going to cut out on spending a little bit of extra money by having a realtor, but people forget that a realtor is their guide and in as many ways is their advocate as well. And oftentimes people wonder what in the world they need a lawyer for. And I'm just like I mentioned before, I never signed as many documents in my life as I did when I did a closing. So now imagine if I had not had a lawyer sitting next to me to review all those documents, to make sure I'm not getting screwed, to make sure I'm not signing away my firstborn child because I signed all these documents without even reading the title of each one. Like, you need a team of people protecting you, a loan officer, you need the lawyer there, you need the realtor. People are really relying on Google and they think they can do it alone, but this is a very complicated process. The stakes are really high. Like you said, you're paying $400,000, $300,000 for a house, and you want to try to figure out what to do on Google the night before your closing. That is a problem. So that's why we're doing this event, to try to get ahead of it and get people's questions answered, so that 1, you can determine whether you're even ready to buy a home or not. Maybe you're not. Maybe you need, like for me, I was 26 when I bought my first property. I knew I wanted a 3 flat, not a house. And so I had to do research about that. I drove all over the city of Chicago on my own, trying to find out what type of 3-flat. I ended up landing in historic Pullman. And I saved up, I saved half of my salary. My salary was peanuts, by the way. I saved up half of my salary for a solid year just to have the down payment. And in the meantime, I was talking to realtor friends. I was trying to, and the internet then was not like what it is now. So I was trying to get as much information, reading books, trying to figure out what I was walking into. And you still see I walked away with a 14% interest rate. So I don't know how much homework actually helped me. I would have loved to have an event like this where you're telling me I can sit and hear two realtors have a conversation about what to expect and what to avoid. And I can actually meet a mortgage broker who has all these different instruments that I don't even know exist. And he can help me figure out which one is best for me. And I can meet some real estate lawyers, and I can meet an expert who's flying in from out of town to tell me about what hazards there are in a new home that new home buyers don't even consider. You're telling me I can get all of that and I can get some food? Oh, I'm there. But there was nothing like this back then. I just had to figure it out. It was all trial and error. My parents could not help me. They had bought their house 20 years before, so they knew about home ownership, but they didn't know about the home buying process because, like you said, it had changed.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Real estate changes every year. The market presents new challenges every year. So just because you bought a house in 22 doesn't mean you know everything that's going to take place in 25. And every year things change. And now, with the pandemic moving further and further away, there was a lot of provisions through the pandemic to, adhere to modifications of loans. Well, let's work it out with you. Oh, you can defer your mortgage payment because you lost your job. There was a little bit more sympathy and empathy to people's unique situations. Now that's gone. Now that's been wiped up. Now we're going into foreclosure. Now we're threatening you if you haven't made your mortgage payment. We're going to take this house from you. So the game has changed, and then consequently, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. If you're not making your mortgage payment, whether you've had, I just spoke to one of my clients, and man, he had 5 strokes in a row, and he got sick, and and he left me a message. I called him back, hey, how are you doing? And he was like, man, I had 5 strokes, I'm just trying to see, but I want to keep my place, man. I just want to make sure. And he's like, well, at those present situation, I was like, well, you have to do a loan modification. He was like, is there anything else? Can you help me? I was like, no, once you're late on your mortgage, you get to a point where I can't help, because the game has changed. When I first got in 2002, we were very reactive to people's situations. You get into trouble, I can clean you up and start you over again. I can restructure that debt and get you back right. But now you have to be on time. To your point, you have to be a strategist. You have to plan everything out. We have to be proactive thinking, because if something happens too late, oh, I missed my mortgage payment, or I got let go of my job, but I wanted to tap into all this equity I have. It's too late. If you knew you were going to lose your job, you should have called me 5 months ago. Let's get the refinance in there. Let's pull that cash out when you have the ability to do it. You can't wait till the end and then, oh, now this happened to me. Now I'm ready to do something. It's too late. So I want to take a minute right here just to do some housekeeping notes. Most people know that we have housekeeping notes. If you are needing a blueprint, if you are needing a plan, the best way to start is my book, The Ultimate Mortgage Guide. The Ultimate Mortgage Guide is available on Amazon, so just check it out. It's worth the read. Basically, to your point, attorney, I started in this business June 24th, 2002, and I still get the same questions in 2002 that I get now in 2025. And I'm like, man, these are the same questions, different generation, different folks, but the same questions are being asked. So that tells me the information is not readily available. I made it available. I answered a lot of those questions. Go check out the book, The Ultimate Mortgage Guide. It's available on Amazon. Also, too, we have a spotlight interview. Once this show is over today, please stick around. Go to YouTube. Our YouTube channel is Epic Spotlight. We have our Epic Spotlight podcast of Kent Nichols. He is the CFO of a church. He breaks down just how the church does business, what they strategize and plan to help the community. They're doing a lot of great things. Go check out the Kent Nichols Epic Spotlight podcast. And we have some preferred listings. All right, we a couple new ones. We were getting teased yesterday, but some of these homes were gone this weekend, so it was good. Right now, we have only five preferred listings, so we got some work to do. But we do still have 8228 South LaSalle, Chicago, Illinois. It's going for $250,000. It's a 3-bed, 1-bath house. Contact Amico Pope 808-428-3770. We have 9049 South Parnell Avenue, Chicago, Illinois. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath house going for $279,980. Contact Sebastian Kupiec at 773-430-8988. We do have one condo. A preferred listing is 6945 South Dorchester Avenue, Unit 2S, Chicago, Illinois. It's a 3-bed, 1-bath condo. Contact 11 Evelyn Woods, 773-718-9742. And we have 2 commercial properties still out there. We have 1645 Western Avenue, Chicago Heights, going for $339. Contact Keith Terry, 773-655-1360. And we do have 1413 East End, Chicago Heights. It's a commercial storage going for $165. Contact Amico Pope, 808-428-3770. So I wanted to make sure we get those preferred listings out there. All right, I'm going to go to the audience. We got some questions out here. I appreciate you guys asking some questions today, and let's go at it. So the first one, what was the turning point that made April focus on legal literacy?
Yeah, so I always hesitate to tell the story. My little cousin got arrested. And when my little cousin got arrested, his parents told him absolutely everything wrong to do, even though they both had my telephone numbers in their phone on speed dial. And I didn't get that call until 3 weeks later when he had a court date. And I haven't been that mad very often in my life. And I knew that it fell to me because this is a kid, obviously, I had known since birth. And I had pulled him to the side to tell him the basics of surviving a police encounter. And he was actually being a good Samaritan when he got arrested. So I hadn't pulled him to the side to tell him the rules of police encounters. And so I knew that if this kid who had had access to me literally since the day of his birth didn't know what to do, God help the other kids who would never meet me or meet a criminal defense attorney who was patient enough to sit down with them. I mean, most criminal defense attorneys, to our credit, yes, we want to keep people out of jail, but yeah, we want to keep you coming, so we keep getting paid. And so some people are not very happy about what I do, but that was a turning point for me when I saw somebody that I love dearly who could have avoided a situation completely had either of his parents picked up the phone to call me instead of instructing their son to call 911. He was assisting someone who was having a psychotic break, and he got arrested, and the person having the psychotic break was able to continue to roam free. So but I know not to call police when somebody's having a mental health crisis, because that's usually what happens. Either the person who is sick gets injured or killed by police, or the person who called gets arrested by police. And so, but they didn't bother to pick up the phone, and that's what spurred the whole movement.
All right, next question here. How can first-time homebuyers protect themselves legally?
By getting an attorney early. So one having a realtor, because like I said, the last 2 deals I did had no realtors, and that was a huge headache because there were things that should have been done before the contract was signed, meaning the purchase agreement for the home was signed, that just weren't done because there was no realtor involved. For one contract, I didn't even get a call until 1 month after the contract had been signed. And then I'm trying to do damage control. So you want to hire an attorney right away. Normally you can just ask your realtor for a referral, but you want to have that realtor, you want to have that attorney there so that we can review everything. And then just the first 5 days are really crucial. We have ethical obligations that we have to meet. We have to contact opposing counsel. There are certain things that we have to have in writing. And so if you blow that and you don't hire me until you realize your closing is coming up in a couple of weeks, then I've probably blown the opportunity to do those things for you. So the most important thing you can do is have an attorney involved in the process early on, rather than thinking that we're an afterthought.
Awesome. We did get a laughter. I think they were laughing at my storytelling, but I know Dennis. Thanks for listening, Dennis. Our next question is: what's the biggest lesson April learned from defending clients in court?
That no one is as bad as their worst mistake. Oh, I have several lessons. That nobody is as bad as their worst mistake. That most people who land in court is because of ignorance, not because of true evil. I can't say I've ever met a client who was truly evil. That support systems and community matter. That most people who are charged with violent crimes are dumped by their families within the first month. Families don't come out to support. They don't come to court. They don't come to sentencing. They do not help at all with attorney's fees. They literally throw their loved ones away. So those are just some of the highlights. And really, most of my cases, probably 85% of my clients could have avoided ever being arrested if they had simply done the same two things that I told you: shut up and lawyer up, and then the other thing is say, I do not consent. But most people believe that they have to consent to a search of their car, of their person, of their book bag, of their trunk, simply because a boy in blue holding a badge and a gun told them to do it, and you don't.
Next question here. What's one common myth people believe about the justice system?
That there's any truth or fairness involved in any of it. I often tell people that truth never finds its way into the courtroom. So I'll give this example. I, sit down and go over police reports with clients, and only 2 times in 25 years have I ever had a client be like, yep, that police report is accurate. Normally, even if my client did the crime, everything in the police report is completely backwards, turned upside down, because the police officer, even a good cop, is putting together a puzzle. And that doesn't mean he's putting together all the correct pieces. It doesn't mean that he has all the information. He's just trying to put a piece of puzzle together to create a story to pass off to a prosecutor. It doesn't mean that the story is actually correct. And so most people believe that justice and that court is about justice and truth. It's not. First of all, court is about punishment. It's about punishment, whether that's you paying a fine, you paying legal fees, you paying you paying something to the other side, or you paying with your time in prison. But it's not about fairness, and it's not about truth. And I tell people 99% of the time, truth never even enters into the courtroom. It's about which side can tell the best story to sway the jury or the judge.
That's scary. That's scary to say. My goodness.
That's why you just want to stay out of court altogether.
100%.
Stay out of court. It's way easier to stay out of court altogether than it ever is to get out once you're in it.
Yeah. Scary stuff. What challenges do communities face when it comes to legal literacy?
We don't have any. I don't care if you're black, brown, white, Asian, Puerto Rican, Serbian. Nobody has any legal literacy when it comes to the criminal justice system. So they rely on TikTok. I was meeting with some kids. I taught a workshop for the West Side NAACP chapter, and there I did a bunch of back-to-back workshops with kids. I don't know, maybe like 16 to 19. And one of the boys, he just shook his head when he was done with my workshop. He was like, man, I just been lost in the world off TikTok knowledge. And I just started cracking up because I knew what he meant. He meant that he was relying on what he saw on social media to guide him. But he realized after coming to my session that he literally knew nothing about the law. And this isn't as simple as I don't know the legal jargon. This is literally, we don't know what's legal and not legal. We have no clue what our protections and rights are if we are confronted by a police officer, whether it's in a school corridor or on the corner. And therefore, we don't know the correct response because we don't even know where to start. All we go by is old wives' tales, what grandma told us, what Pookie and them told us who did some time in prison. And we base our entire legal literacy on that, and all of it is wrong. So think about the talk that most black folks and most brown folks give to their kids. How are you giving a college lecture on the Fourth and Fifth Amendment when you don't know it yourself, but you went off and told your 15, 16-year-old, 18-year-old, ooh, baby, be polite. Just do what the police officer says. Just tell the truth. You don't know what the truth is. You don't know where the bodies are buried, but now you're setting this 15-year-old to be alone in a room with a 35-year veteran police detective who can lie to them, who can trick them, who can deceive them, and they've got no protections. So that's the challenge that the community has, is we don't have any legal literacy at all, and that means that we are always the underdog walking into any courtroom or having any conversation with a police officer.
Yeah, no doubt. It made me think. I had a client last year buying a condo, and he came in here, mechanic, and he was like, asked me questions from what he saw on TikTok, and I was like, what? And it kind of, from a business perspective, it motivated me to make sure I'm on these platforms, because I want to provide real value and real knowledge that people can apply and use, instead of this kind of half truths that are out there with not all the fine print. They give you the sexy, but they don't really give you the backside to it. What I mean, they give you a little bit of a piece that's great for marketing perspective. Oh, you can get a mortgage with no money down, but then they don't go into the whole perspective. Well, how does that necessarily work? Even to the point in the mortgage space, we had this whole $25,000, grant is available, and it wasn't a grant. It was actually a second mortgage, and it's actually only 5% of the purchase price. So yes, it can go all the way up to 500,000, but it's not 25,000 if you're buying a $150,000 house, or if you're buying a $300,000 house. It was very misleading, the information that was being presented, but it was permeating, and it permeates rapid fire, especially in this whole internet, kind of playground that we play in nowadays. So
That's what inspired me to do two things: one, to teach law school, and two, to get on TV. Why? Because both of those things buy me credibility. People aren't going to follow. I mean, you can't follow me into the courthouse and see what I do on a day-to-day basis. You'd have to take my word for it. So on social media, I'm no different than any other person. I could be out here spreading lies as well. But when you see me on Court TV, and then the next day you see me on News Nation, there was a time I was on News Nation 22 days out of 30 days. Like, the running joke was, April's here so often, we need to give her an office, right? But because of that had instant credibility everywhere I went, because they were like, oh, wow, News Nation and Court TV and Inside Edition wouldn't have her on as a news correspondent, as a legal correspondent, if she didn't know what she was talking about. Whereas I can be on TikTok, Instagram, telling all kind of lies and telling you that I'm an attorney, and I'm not. I could be telling you that I never lost a case, and I have. Whereas if I'm on TV, that gives me a different type of credibility. And same thing with teaching law school. I couldn't even set foot in the law school if I didn't know what I was talking about, let alone be allowed to teach students.
All right. Good stuff. Next one is, what's one piece of advice April would give to protect generational wealth?
I believe in coaches. I believe in coaches for every endeavor, every area of your life. So whether that's a financial coach, whether that is having a financial advisor, whether it is showing up to events and conferences, whether it means that you have somebody who consults with you one-on-one or consults with you in a small group. I believe in finding mentors, and I think that is the way to do it, because there are so many different ways to create wealth. Maybe you do infinite banking. Maybe you invest in real estate. Maybe you buy stocks and bonds. It's going to be different for you and really what your tolerance level is. But if you find somebody who can coach you, who you trust, and I think that a lot of us, like I said, we just run to Google and YouTube instead of finding somebody, a human, who we know and trust, who can actually guide us to say, okay, my tolerance level is this with investing, it's this with saving, and then we have somebody to guide us. I'm a big proponent of finding coaches.
Awesome. And last up.
So your mastermind sounds like a great place to start.
Epic Mortgage is Google. Yeah, and yeah, it was one of those things. It was just an idea. I've been doing this for 23 years. So and primarily I was always behind the curtain. I worked primarily with realtors, financial advisors, agents would refer me customers, and I would service those customers and keep it moving. Really, the shift happened in 22, where I kind of was like, I needed to have just more consistency, as rates basically doubled. The interest rates doubled November of 22. They went from like 3.5, 3.75, all the way up to 7 and 8%. And I wanted to get to the customer directly and let them know, hey, I'm here. I can still help you. And a lot of things, even during the pandemic, there were shifts and moving. But being a broker, I had access to so many different products and programs. I've had the options that never changed. It never changed on them. Always stayed consistent with the products that I had. And so I just want to get to the consumer. And then, like I said, like we talked about with TikTok, and all these people are getting all this information. And some of it was bad information, IG and all that stuff. I was like, I want to be on here spreading good information, real information, and then let me be that coach. But I do believe in coaches right now. I do believe in the idea of having strategy, having an advisor, and we talked about it a little bit earlier. And what I call it is a financial team. Having an attorney is a part of the financial team, someone that you can go to and ask these legality questions. And I love the literacy. I never really thought of it, but legal literacy, financial literacy. I mean, that's so important in everyone's circle. So we need to have these people, and I'm so glad you were able to come on today, because this is good information. And let's bring this up again, just before we get going. We do have this event on the 14th. Um, talk about just what can a person expect when they go to the brunch.
So first, you can expect a dynamic MC. Miss Demita is probably the most dynamic speaker I've ever met in my life. We met in a different endeavor, and she is a brand new realtor. And so she's eager to learn, and she's eager to teach what she knows to home buyers, and she's going to be running the show. And so with that, we're bringing on a veteran realtor. Tiffany, I think, has been doing this something like 25, 30 years. She's also a tax preparer, so she knows both sides of that, which I have personally hired her for both. So I have found that to be a great duo. So she's going to be there telling us what to expect, what hiccups she's seeing that home buyers run into, what pitfalls they can avoid. We have you on there, of course, who's going to guide us through the matrix and the maze that is mortgage lending. And then our keynote speaker is actually from Atlanta. He used to be my next door neighbor here in Chicago.
Oh, wow.
Lamont Ellaby. Yes. So I've known him, I don't know, 25, 26 years. And he actually is fascinating because he teaches realtors. He's the trainer of the realtors, but he's not a realtor. Mm-hmm. And so what he does is he teaches them marketing. I actually put this whole program together based on the training that he did for your mastermind that I attended. And he's going to come in and talk about what his expertise is, which is 30 years as an alarm specialist. And he's going to talk about when you buy a house, all the different pitfalls, all the different safety hacks that people don't even think about, how to keep yourself safe, how to keep yourself safe from fire, how to keep yourself safe from burglary, how to protect the home that you just spent so much money on. And so that's what we look forward to. And I was going to say, I want to challenge any realtors who are listening to go ahead and buy multiple tickets for any buyers and sellers you're working with. Why? Because it's going to cut down on the number of headaches that you get. It's going to cut down on the number of questions that you get. You're providing a service to them. And you're like, wow, they're going to feel like, oh man, she invited me to this amazing event. I got to meet great professionals. I was joking with my dad. My dad's a realtor too. And I was saying, people seem to think like it's crabs in a barrel or there's competition, and they don't want to have their buyers in the room with other realtors, but that's simply foolish. That's just access to more resources and more information. And then your buyer or seller feels like, wow, they got the extra, I don't know, extra bang for their buck by hiring you, somebody who would provide them with such quality information. So I would encourage any realtors to buy multiple tickets, to have their buyers and sellers in the room, especially if you represent a seller. You might end up walking away with a buyer for that property that you've been trying to move. So I would suggest, if you represent sellers or buyers, to be in the building. I do want to end with a horror story. So I had a friend call me. She was out of the country and for an extended period of time. And while she was out of the country, someone falsified her ID, falsified all these documents, and actually sold her house up from under her. They pretended to be her, sold her house. She did get it verified through all the proper channels that this was a fraud, but they took all of her belongings of a lifetime. They're all gone. They threw them all away. And I tell this story because that's why you need a legal team, because now she's in a position where somebody falsified all these documents, stole her house from underneath her. And I was just rolling off how many people she could sue. I was like, you need to sue the title company because they didn't do their due diligence. They clearly couldn't have notarized anything if they didn't even realize that this was a fake ID or fake paperwork or fake signature or whatever they falsified. I was like, you need to sue both of the attorneys involved. You need to sue the realtor. You need to sue the mortgage broker who issued the mortgage. They sold her house for probably half of what it was worth, but it was an ultimate fraud because that person walked away with the check for that full amount. So I say all that to say you have to have a full team, a realtor, a lawyer, a mortgage broker. You have to have all these people working on your behalf as a seller or the buyer so that you can be protected and to avoid such tragic results.
That's awesome.
Still not backing her property. She's still not backing her property. Even though they recognize it's a fraud, she still does not have her house back.
Wow. So who was actually living in the house, or is it just vacant right now?
The buyer, the unwitting buyer who had no idea that this was fraudulent. So think about that. Now you're that person who you got the mortgage, you did all your due diligence, you did everything right, and you got duped. So I'm just saying these are dangerous times in terms of fraud. Fraud is on the rise, and you really want to be protected. And the best way to do that is to get a really diligent team around you.
Yeah, no, you can't say that enough. A couple more stats. I like numbers, so let me do some stats. Only 39% of moderate income U.S. households who face legal issues actually use the legal system. 23% attempt to resolve problems without help. 26% take no action at all. That's nearly 2/3 left navigating tough situations alone or doing nothing. What do you think about that?
I think that's very accurate. I get family members giving advice to folks all the time and nobody involved is a lawyer. And I'm like, you just made it worse for your relative because they trust you, they listen to you, and you don't know what you're talking about. So I think that's probably very accurate. I even say that for those who are out here selling their houses on their own with no realtor. You are setting yourself up. No realtor. You don't hire a lawyer until the last minute. You're setting yourselves up all because you're trying to save a couple dimes. You're actually going to cost yourself a lot more time, energy, and money down the line.
Yeah, we're going to table that conversation for another time. I'm with you. I agree. But that new rule that came about last August really did. I'm surprised how it's being handled right now. I'll say that. I definitely was thinking that the market was going to go in one direction, but it kind of went reverse of what I thought was going to happen. And so it makes it a real interesting to see how this is going to play. Obviously when rules get changed, I mean, real estate to some degree, it was the same, the rules were the same for the last 50 years. And so now to have this sudden change, I don't anticipate, the change to be turned back, anytime soon. And so it is interesting to see how maybe this is just a short-term situation, but the impact has been a big ordeal. It has been a big ordeal because it's forcing buyers to pay more money, especially first-time home buyers. And so I'll be curious to see how that as we go longer and longer. And I think that's what some of the squirmish nature that you're talking about that you're seeing in the marketplace from buyers, like, can I get around having to pay this extra money? Can I get around this realtor? Because they are important. They are 100% important. The knowledge that Tiffany Taylor has is, come on, without question more than you probably have when you're trying to buy your first home, going off of hearsay and TikTok. But how much it costs you, and sometimes we don't always make the decision based on what we should be doing. We make a decision based on what our pockets say I can or cannot do. So it's going to be interesting to see in that. But this has been great. I did want to reference that U.S. home ownership in early 2025 is down to about 65.2%, down from about 67%, 25 years ago in the year 2000. So we're starting to see a little bit of a dip in home ownership, and I think that's due to the prices and the price increase. That it's just to some degree unaffordable. It's making people make decisions and pausing on moving on with their life. But life is life, and if you're trying to start a family and live in a certain area, we got to start embarking on assets. Buying assets is really the name of game from a financial literacy standpoint. You always want to be looking into buying assets. So, but this was great. This was great. We did it. I appreciate you. It went by pretty fast, right?
It did. It did. So I appreciate you for having me on and for being a part of my upcoming event and helping to spread the word. I think we're going to have a fantastic time. We're definitely going to have some good food. My childhood friend who runs Doughboy Chicago is providing the food. I've had him cater multiple times, and it's all very good. So you want to be there for the food if for no other reason. But we're going to have a great conversation, play a couple games to keep things moving along. But it's going to be a great workshop.
Can you go ahead and just give out your handles, your contact information, so everyone knows? And once again, that website, because I gotta get that game. I gotta play that with my kids.
Yeah. So the game, to get the game, it's at theonlygameyouneed.com. Theonlygameyouneed.com. And then all my handles on all social media platforms are the same. It's JustUs Junkie, JustUs Junkie. I spell justice a little bit different because there's a saying, there is no justice, there's just us. So it's JustUs Junkie on IG, FB, LinkedIn, TikTok. It's the same everywhere. You can find me there. You can just shoot me a DM.
And if I didn't learn anything, I learned one thing today: shut up and lawyer up.
Absolutely. Save yourselves a whole lot of grief just by doing that.
Appreciate you, April. Hope to have you on again. And I will see you in person September 14th, Sunday, 1 o'clock. I'll be there.
All right. Thanks so much.
All right. Everyone, take care. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good day.